that placemaking for us at the Urban Design Group is something about making a robust place and making a memorable place. Because we think the most successful places are the ones that are memorable. I mean, just as an example in history, the Georgian Squares in London, very, very memorable. Or thinking about buildings around here in Chancery Lane, the Law Courts, which are near here. Lincoln's Inn, an incredibly memorable environment. And we think less successful environments, which have poor placemaking, in our view at the Urban Design Group, are the sort of places that are a bit more disposable, a bit like the kind of the fast food world, if you will. Something that's only going to last 10 or 20 years, or maybe even 30 to 40 years. But we think the best places are going to last 200, 300, 400, maybe even longer. I think that often we're, as urban designers, slightly divorced from the kind of hard branding element which possibly comes further down the line. We tend to look at sites at a very early stage, doing feasibilities, then working on outline planning applications. But I have seen examples where the ideas that we might have brainstormed for in an early design session have come through to the branding, because often a site's unique selling product is something that hopefully we're picking up as urban designers, because we're trying to maximise the quality of place for our clients and ultimately value, let's be realistic, people, local authorities, developers, housing associations. You're not going to build something unless they can get some level of return, albeit that it might be an element of social housing or public realm in the case of a local authority. But those kind of unique points often do come through to the branding. So I think there's, I would argue, and I think the Urban Design Group would argue as well, that actually good urban design and good branding should really go together. I think there's more work that we need to do at the Urban Design Group, and frankly that the overall house building industry has to think about, because various bits of research have shown that not just a well-designed house, but a well-designed neighbourhood and community has an economic value. So the better informed developers, shall we say, and those that maybe are not just into short-term profits or have shareholders they immediately need to answer to, are able to invest. And we see great examples of that up and down the country, of wonderful places to live, of houses which are not just thought about in terms of boxes which are to be bashed out quickly, but actually building communities. I think the government absolutely should be having a bigger vision for placemaking. At the moment, we have the National Planning Policy Framework, the NPPF. I mean, it's just by the title we can see it's not a vision. I can show it to you. It's about 70 to 80 pages of writing. There's not one drawing in there, which I find very frustrating as an urban designer. What the Urban Design Group would argue for is actually to have a bigger vision. Why not have a plan for nationally, for the country, for planning and for placemaking, not just a framework, but an actual vision. This is where we want to have jobs, this is where we want to have homes, and rather than having them here and here, let's have them like this, and let's overlay some public transport at the same time. So actually having a vision, which is what other countries have. They have a vision for how their planning is going to be in 10, 20, 30, 40 years' time. And I think there's a real opportunity for us in the UK to be able to do that. I think the fact that we're having a debate about placemaking, the fact that I'm speaking about it now, I think is only a good thing. Because I think for a long time, actually, we weren't talking about placemaking. And if we're not talking about it at all, we're probably not getting it right, I would suggest. So I think placemaking is an absolutely fantastic term. I'd like to talk about it more and more. Of course, people are going to abuse the term and say that they're doing good placemaking, but if we're at least talking about it and we're making it part of the planning system, then we can hopefully begin to measure it a bit as well. And like a lot of things in life, it's quite subjective. My good placemaking isn't necessarily good placemaking of somebody else. And actually that's why we come together and we design together and we talk to communities and we talk to local authorities and we try and bring everybody together in terms of urban design to be able to talk about what placemaking is and what good placemaking is. And of course, what good placemaking is different for every location, because it should be context driven. So if we're having something on Chancery Lane, good placemaking here is going to be completely different for if we're looking at a field in Hampshire, and completely different if we're in Scotland, if we're in Wales, if we're in another country. So I would say that good placemaking is actually creating memorable environments, but also successfully using your context and your communities as well to be able to shape those environments.